All right. Hi, everyone. We are back, and I'm here today with my friend Jennifer Bassman. I'm so excited for us to talk, but I have to tell you, you don't know this. We've already been talking for almost an hour behind the scenes and said, well, I guess we better hit record at some point. So hopefully, the stuff we're still going to talk about is as good as the stuff we just were talking
Of course
about.
it will be.
Yeah.
Of course it will be.
We had a lot of catching up to do. So before we get started, and I think this is going to be an interesting conversation just because the last 45 minutes have been a conversation that we've been having. And that's what I like. We just said, well, we have to hang out more. I live in New Jersey. She lives in Texas. And I feel like we would be good happy hour friends if we lived
Yes.
close together, right? So let me just kind of tell you who she is a little bit, just real quick, if you don't know Jen. She's a speaker, she's an author, a business coach. She really specializes in stress management and burnout recovery for women. And that's where we connected. So if you've ever heard that term burnout or you are a woman, you are going to love hearing from her. She has 15 years of research experience in stress and burnout. So I also think that's very interesting because it's not just, oh, this is what I think or this is what I've done, but she's actually researched this. So she gives very practical solutions for women who face societal expectations, hormonal changes, overwhelming responsibilities. We were just talking about the stat that since COVID, 54% of senior level women feel exhausted. But I also like this. We didn't talk about this. The stat I have is 37% of all women feel exhausted. Like we're just tired. So I feel
We
like
are.
you're a good person for this. Um, and I also like this. She says Jen has four very spoiled, very high maintenance rescue dogs that run her life.
True story.
um, so we'll have to find out a little bit more about these pups. I love that they're rescue dogs. So all of our dogs are rescue dogs. So I like that.
Yay. Thank you.
Yeah. So we have two now, but they're funny
Why
because
stop
one,
there?
because we took my brother's dog. So this is funny. My brother got a puppy and we took the dog for like 2.5 weeks, which was a very unplanned thing. So Caroline,
Uh-huh.
Caroline, so their
Yeah.
dog. And I literally at one point called my brother and I said, I'm going to start sacrificing your children for each item your dog destroys in my house. And he goes, how much do I owe you? And I was like, you better start breeding while you're over there. I forgot how puppies are so. This dog, so he's a boy, they're both fixed. Ours is a girl. I mean, my dog, unfortunately, was like harassed. Like, poor Holly, she was harassed the entire time. Like he literally would try to hump her like on all four all the time.
Yeah.
And she would just be looking at him like, "What is wrong
Are
with
you
you?"
doing this to me?
Right? So wild, so hyper. But my brother came back. He bought me a very, very expensive bottle of tequila, so we made up for it. I was like, "All right, we'll watch.
That's
We'll watch
fair.
the dog."
Sounds like an equal trade.
Well, you know what? So you'll appreciate this. Your dog lover. They weren't going to keep the dog because he's so crazy. I mean, the dog is literally nuts. And their first dog was this pit rescue. And my sister-in-law said it was her baby. It was her baby before they had babies. And she said to my brother at one point, if the house is ever on fire, you better save the children because I will save the dog. Like
Yeah.
this is my baby. So when this poor dog,
I feel
finally
that.
died,
Yeah.
oh, they were devastated. And so they get this other dog and he's nuts, right? And it's hard when you have the dog you love with this nuts dog. And they were almost going to return the dog because he was so nuts. And their house was almost broken into. And somebody literally was on their deck, like trying to get in. And the dog, they were upstairs sleeping. The dog heard, the dog starts barking like nuts, runs down the stairs, like banging against the door. They realized they were going to be burglarized. And then they were like, well, now we can't get rid of him. He saved our lives.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
the dog earned the crazy dog
He earned
earned
his
his
spot in the
spot.
house. Yeah. Excellent. Here's
Yes.
his usefulness. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, there you go. You
That's
can hear
funny.
my dog barking. That's great. This is great. My dog's now. All right. Interesting. As we're talking about this, my dogs start barking. Do you have this with four? And this is maybe why I couldn't handle four because I feel like every time somebody looks at our house, yeah, see, oh, this is going to be fun. This was a dog episode. So if you're a dog lover, you're going to love this episode. If you hate dogs, I suggest you stop listening now.
Yeah.
But like every time somebody looks at our house, our dogs think they're coming in with machetes to kill us.
Yes.
And sometimes it's even like one of the kids. Like, I'm like, "Can't you
Yes.
different like, you're supposed to be so smart. You can tell when we're coming home from 3 miles away. You can't tell that this is the kid whose bed you sleep in every night, and they're not coming in with machetes to kill us."
Correct.
Like
Yeah. Yeah, no, my dogs do that. We have in the front of our house, we have like these floor to ceiling, bay windows. and they love to just sit there and watch what's happening on the street. And this may even happen while we're trying to record. God forbid the mailman tries to deliver mail. And it's, we have kind of a rotating group of mailmen, but there's one when he walks by, my dogs are viciously barking at the window and like yelling at him, and he's looking and pointing and laughing at them. And
watching the dogs.
It just makes me laugh because, his response just makes me laugh. And I've actually talked to him before, and he just, I said, I tell him all the time, they can't get mad at you. You deliver their treats. You're the one that delivers all the goodies. So they need to be nicer to you. And he goes, it's just a good thing they're cute. That's all I'm going to say.
Now, are they big or small?
We have, they're mostly medium sized. Yeah.
What would you consider medium size?
They're all between 40 and 70 pounds.
That's medium size?
Medium.
Okay.
Medium to biggish. Yeah.
I would say that's medium to biggish.
Yeah. Well, like you've got, Bernese Mountain Dogs and Great Danes, and, those can get pretty huge. So can Golden Retrievers. So,
So I had a huge, like over 100-pound German Shepherd. I mean, this dog was like, he was my baby. Like I loved this dog so much. And
probably sat in your lap too, right?
Oh my gosh, he was the best. And look, it was interesting. When I got pregnant, this dog would not leave my side. I was sick my whole pregnancy. I mean, we used to have to drag him upstairs to go outside. Yeah. He was the best dog ever. But he was like Cujo. So he was funny because my daughter like literally could crawl over to him, take a bone out of his mouth, and he would look at me like why? But if I had put her in the backyard on a blanket and I could have gone to the store and come back, nobody would have gotten near that kid. I mean, he was crazy. My alarm went off one time in the house, and the cop was at my house, and he's like, lady, I'm not even going near your door. Like, you got Cujo in the window, right? So he was the greatest dog. I absolutely love this dog, but he was also like, very, like as a puppy, very destructive. We had him in like puppy therapy because like they're so smart. They just need a lot of stimuli, So, and he was very aggressive. I think he was the runt of the litter. And so he had very severe dog aggression and like all the time. Yeah. So I had to walk him with like a special thing that like, so I could control his neck because he was so powerful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had to be able to control him, but had very, very severe dog aggression. And the only time I saw him back down is he was in dog therapy. He was going to like underwater treadmill therapy for the dog, and we get to the pool place, and there's this, what are those huge, the biggest dogs that you have? What are they? They're like gray. I mean, they look like small, like bears.
Those might be Great Danes.
They're not Great Danes because they're big. They're like thick and big. Oh my gosh, what are they? They're like 200-pound dogs.
Weimaraners don't get that big.
I don't know. It's like a 200-pound dog. It's ginormous. I mean, it's just this big, fluffy, huge, looks like a, and I cannot remember what they are off the top of my head. If I remember, they're not a Great Dane because they're not thin. They're big and fluffy. And this woman, this little tiny 5-foot woman, he's like walking one, right? And my dog is now like, I'm going to attack this 200-pound dog.
Yeah.
But that as he turns, she's actually walking 3 of them. I mean, it was like 600 pounds. And it was the only time I saw my dog kind of go like,
just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding.
And so she was bringing them, I guess, because she would bring them there so that they could swim in the pool to get exercise because they were so like, to keep, but I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine your house having like 600 pounds of dog and fur and like what needs to go on there.
That's a lot. That is a lot.
I had never seen anything like that. Now it's going to drive me crazy. I'm going to have to Google what the dog is. All right.
What breed that is.
So if you're listening and you have a dog, we want to know what kind of dog do you have? And if you're a dog person, because dog people are very like, they either love dogs or people are like, what's with people and their dogs?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, there's
it's dog people versus everyone.
Yeah. Well, when I was single, I used to we have a little Chiweenie hot dog. She's my daughter's emotional support dog that I would take in a bag to the hospital. Mm-hmm. Like the therapist recommended getting her dog. So Jen, we get this dog and we're bringing her to the dog park, and I'm single. And, they say dog park is a great place to meet people. But let me tell you, and this is going to be judgmental, I'm sure I'm going to be judged for this. You do not meet people in the small dog park. All of the guys that you want to meet are in the big dog park.
Usually, yes.
The people in the small dog park, these are not the people a single woman in her 30s wants to meet. So I'm just going to put that out there. All the stereotypes, they're true.
That's fair. I
I
think
was
it's
like,
fair.
I'm literally on the wrong side of the fence. Like, legit. So that did not work out well. All right, so let's grab a scream chair here and see our wheel of names. Okay, so here we go. Are you ready?
Ready. Big money, big
All right.
money. I'm just kidding.
All right, let's see what pops up. Ooh. Oh, this is such a good one for you. Oh my gosh. So Sarah Alpin, who's been another guest, she submitted this question. What is the hill you will die on that no one else cares about nearly as much as you do? What is the hill that you would die on, but nobody else cares about that hill as much as you care about that hill?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Jen's like, I have so many hills, I have to figure out which hill I'm going to stand on.
Mountain climbing, people, mountain climbing. Mountain climbing. Woo! I would say, okay, this one it like really grinds my gears. That you should have your license taken away if you don't use turn signals.
Wait, what?
You should have your license taken away if you don't use turn signals. Like people just don't use turn signals anymore when they're driving. Is that a weird hill?
No, it's just that I wouldn't have a license anymore.
I mean, I shouldn't even say that should be, there should be more repercussions for, I mean, it drives me absolutely crazy, batshit crazy.
Okay, so
Like,
wait, is this like a common thing? So Jen's in Texas, I'm in New Jersey. Is this a common thing in Texas?
yes, but people in Texas are terrible drivers and they're aggressive
Really?
drivers to boot. Yeah, they're very aggressive drivers. And
That floors me. I would not think that. Like, it's
yeah,
just an open road in Texas. You're just kind of like lots of land and hanging out on like the prairie. What is the aggression coming from?
who knows? I mean, it's so like, so I'm originally from Des Moines, Iowa, and I moved here when I was 18 to go to college. And when I moved here, the major freeway that was near the college was actually under construction. And it was literally kind of down to a two-way highway. And this is a highway that goes through the center of the city, basically. And they were widening it, I think, to like 5 lanes on each, so about 10 lanes. Plus, they were adding a dart rail, metro rail basically to it as well. And so the on ramps to this freeway were really short, so you couldn't speed up, to like you typically would, so that you
You
can
can
join
accelerate enough.
traffic. Yeah, and so people were getting hurt and injured and even killed
Oh my
because this
gosh.
highway was, set up so horribly under construction. And so the first few years that I lived in Dallas, I did not ever use this highway. And what the consequence of that was is I know all these random back streets to get to places. So when traffic clogs, I know how to get there some other way. Like, and this is also, people keep in mind, this is before cell phones. This is before maps, like you could Google map something or use Waze to get somewhere. And so it really came in handy. But yeah, we have traffic. It's probably not as bad as like LA, but it still gets pretty bad. But it's like people forget driver's ed the second they get their license. And I'm not, like, it's just, if you're going to be an aggressive driver, be a little bit safer at least, and tell me you're going
Oh
to
my
cut me
gosh.
off and come in my lane. I mean, people just don't use their turn signals, and it blows my mind. And
Oh,
it's annoying
that's a
too.
Jersey thing too. I'm thinking, okay, it's because I'm thinking a turn signal. When you said that, I'm thinking to like put a turn signal on to like exit the highway. And I
Yeah.
would say that for the most part, I feel like I do that. Sometimes it's like, oh, I didn't realize the exit was coming up as quick. Oh, see, there's the doggies.
Sorry. Molly
Okay,
Beth.
so we just paused and resumed because the dogs did attack, and now we have a dog hugging and kissing.
This
If
is
you're listening, you
Molly.
can't watch, but if you're watching, we've now met Molly. So this is funny. This will be and I have to say, this is where your personality changes over time. People say it doesn't.
Yeah.
When I was in my 20s and I was trying to build a business, and I was working so hard to be so professional. And I would dress in a suit all the time because wanted to look older, and I wanted to
Mhm.
look more professional. if I was on the phone with somebody and God forbid there was background noise, I would like lose my mind because I was like, it's not professional. Like I need to be taken
Yeah.
seriously. And then you do get to an age where you're like, oh, well, like
You're giving a
dogs
damn bust.
barking, double. Yeah. And I kind of wish I wish I had gotten to that age sooner. And then I sometimes feel guilty about that. Like,
I do
like even
too.
with this, right? Like, oh, I should probably edit out the dog barking, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to tell you right now, like, I'm not going to. But I'm like, oh, that would be more professional. I probably should edit that out.
Right.
And then I'm like, why? People don't have dogs? Like, like,
For children. Yeah.
right. Like, remember that? Did
Your
you see
house
that
is
during
totally
COVID?
quiet all the time. Right.
But did you
Yeah.
see that during COVID? It went viral. It was the guy, he was like on the news and the wife, the door opens and the kids come
Yes.
in and the wife, and I'm like, that's the perfect example, right? We were like
Yeah.
trying to pretend children don't exist, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
and I guess this goes into what maybe we were talking before we started recording, like, why is it a bad thing to have kids? Like, why is that something that we should be hiding and be ashamed of? Do you know what I
Who
mean?
knows? I mean, I think it's just like corporate America in particular, everything, has rules and everybody's trying to be professional and, look good, like they have everything together. And so when something like your
Ooh.
child just randomly walks in or your dogs bark, it used to make me feel at least like I didn't have it together. Like I was a bad dog
Oh,
mom because my
yes,
dogs weren't
yes.
trained.
Okay.
My dogs weren't trained to understand that I'm on a Zoom call, you know? But yeah, I think it's just this like unrealistic standard and expectation about how we're supposed to be or how we're supposed to behave, and this perfect little world that's supposed to be operating around us when the reality is there's a pile of laundry on my kitchen counter. If I turned my computer about 3 inches this way, you would see a pile of books and papers. We don't want to show that. It
I
makes us
love
look like we're
that.
incompetent.
And this is like, I mean, if you could see my face, I'm kind of like, wow, this is really, I'm going to be like mulling over this for quite some time because I think about why was I trying so hard when I was younger to look like I had it all together? And I will tell you, I felt the pressure. I was training, like I was in my early 20s. I was training women who were, old enough to be my mother. I built business very quickly. I was in like the top of the thing. I wanted to be so professional. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to sound my answering machine, my voicemail. Like I wanted to sound professional. I wanted to look professional. I was very into like, image and making sure I was in a suit and heels and all of that.
Yeah.
But I never thought about why that was. I've always thought, well, it was because I wanted to be professional. But you're right. There's something so much more devious and deeper than that, which is I didn't want to look incompetent.
Yeah.
I didn't want to look like I didn't have it all together because and I've often talked about this when Emily went into the hospital, and and I'm going through this crazy domestic violence divorce, right? And like my whole life is falling apart and everybody knew. And I remember saying, there's something so freeing about the carpet being pulled out from underneath of you because you're sitting on the floor. Everybody knows you're on the floor. And now you don't have to look anymore. Like you don't have to pretend anymore.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was so freeing to be like, yeah, my life's a shit show. Welcome to the party, right?
Welcome
Like,
to the dumpster fire, everybody.
yes. And it was
Yeah.
so freeing. And you're right. But I've never really put it in the words that you just used, which articulate it so perfectly. It's we want to not look incompetent. We want to not look like there's something wrong with us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think women in particular are kind of, we feel like we're held to the standard, and then we do it to each other too, like, oh my God, I can't believe, you're wearing horizontal stripes on video. Don't you know how that makes you look? I mean, there's just there's little
Yes.
things that we do to like nitpick people's personality and performance and, whatever. But yeah, I really think a lot of it is, we care about the perception maybe more than we should of, that people have of us. Sometimes, yeah, you do need to care, about the perception. You're in a job interview, if your life is crazy and chaotic behind you, and that's what the, interviewer is seeing, that's a problem. But, the fact that we can't let our guard down and be human, when it's necessary or every once in a while, I think is really telling. And that's really stressful. I mean, that's kind of, and I'm a people pleasing perfectionist. So I'd know,
I know
I'm
we've talked about
always
this.
trying to
Yeah.
appease people and make them more comfortable without any care to the fact that I'm deeply uncomfortable. And that's
Oh,
something
wait, back that up. Back that up. You have to say that again.
that I'm a people pleasing perfectionist, and that the goal of being one of those people is typically, my world is built around making other people feel comfortable, making them feel good about themselves, making sure that all their needs are taken care of. But I'm actually deeply uncomfortable, deeply anxious, also sweating it out, wondering if I'm doing the right thing, or if there's no, for a long time for me, there just wasn't this middle ground to meet people at. It was just, okay, fine, I'll suffer.
Wow. Okay,
I'll
so how
suffer
many
because I'm supposed
people
to.
I literally just got, like, chills when you said that. I feel like how many people listening did that, like, so deeply hit home? And I'm a people pleaser, not in the way that you are, in a very different way, more in a, like,
Mhm.
it's important to me that people like, personality styles, are different. Mine is very much
Yeah.
like, I want everybody to get along. I want everybody to like me. I don't want to offend
You're harmonious.
anybody. Yes, like, I don't wanna offend people. I think that's a big thing, is I want and it comes from a core value of I deeply, deeply believe that every single person has a significant value as a child of God. My personal spiritual beliefs that I believe that every human life, every human person has value, and that
Sure.
God loves that person. And so coming from that standpoint, then it's very important to me that everybody feels value, feels significant, knows that their opinions, even if they're different than mine, can be respected, right? And so from
Yeah,
that standpoint, then I struggle with, well, I don't want to offend someone, but that also then sometimes means I don't speak my voice. And so when you were talking about the people pleasing, I don't
exactly.
think of it as a people pleasing, but the
Yeah.
uncomfortableness, I feel like that would strike a chord with so many people. Um,
Yeah.
and it's interesting. There's this new trend. Have you seen this on TikTok? It's this new trend of I don't really even remember the hashtag, but it's normalizing like real life. So it's
Yeah.
people showing like their normal kitchens that haven't been like renovated in the last 5 years, right? They're just like the normal cat, like our kitchens where like there's the space in between the top and the bottom, which now is like a total taboo because that's not like
Ooh.
you're supposed to have a cabinet that goes to the ceiling, or it's
Sure.
like normalizing the fact that like my kids had like frozen chicken nuggets for dinner, or like just like normal like, things that
Scandalous
you're like,
stuff.
but when it's so funny because when you see it, you're like, do people still live like that? And then you're like, wait,
Yeah.
I live like that. Like I live like that. I bet there's other people who live like that because we live in a society where it's so social media has
Our
made it
house
that that's
needs to
not.
be ready for an architectural digest, like opening. That's the way we feel like our, things
Yes.
need to look. And I can totally relate to that. Like when I've done TikToks and stuff or videos, I want to make sure that things, you can see I've let that fear go. But I, was very much concerned if there was a pile of laundry that people could see behind me, or an open door that led to my garage, or something, if several things looked out of place,
Yes. I mean,
it
I
to
literally had my
me,
daughter come and help me redo my shelves for my background.
can
Yeah,
she come help me?
100%. Yeah. Well, my daughter has a great it's this young generation. I never even heard this word, the aesthetic. Like, I did not grow
Yeah,
up where there was an aesthetic. Apparently, I have
right,
no
right.
aesthetic, just so you know, I have been informed. I have no aesthetic.
Well,
My
you are
daughter has
such
a
a
very,
failure,
very good
Tara.
aesthetic.
Such a
Yes,
failure.
she has a great aesthetic. Um, but there's like a pressure. Like, what is this
Yeah,
aesthetic professional? Like, I'm like, I don't like it's funny right now. My desk is covered with stuff that you would not see. We
same
recently
girl.
removed we well, this is embarrassing. We moved, but why is it okay, even this why is this embarrassing? I shouldn't be embarrassed by this. We just moved completely out of one place into where I am now going to be full time. And so we had two bedrooms that we moved. And uh, I have an extra queen size box spring that now is too big for the attic, but we can't get it into the basement because of where the stairs are. So I'm just gonna have to get rid of it. But it is currently sitting right in front of me here in my office, along with a bunch of other
Awesome.
boxes that are still here. And I'm like, I need to get through all of this, but it just hasn't been my priority. So it's been here for like 2 weeks. And that's embarrassing to me. But I don't know why I'm embarrassed by that. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you're like,
Yeah, oh, I
why is it
totally do.
embarrassing to you?
Yeah. Why do you have a box
And then
spring in
it's
the
like, well, it's
walls?
only been 2 weeks, but what if it was 2 months? Like, at what level does it become where it should be embarrassing? But then why should be embarrassing? Like, this is a whole I can go down a rabbit hole here, like
Oh no. So my desk is usually I'm just not an organized person when it comes to my desk. It's kind of funny because the rest of my house is relatively organized and picked up, but my desk is actually just this complete shit show. I mean, I'm a piler, and I think
Mm.
that is a genetic trait, by the way. My mom was a piler, my grandmother was a piler, my great grandmother was a piler.
Interesting.
So, stuff just on either side of my computer, gets pretty high if I let it go, and I just let it go. And you would think as like a stress management coach who really does have an understanding that your surroundings, your environment really affect how you think, that I would be a little bit more disciplined or better about that. But I guess I maybe see this area as my place to be a mess, and,
Mm.
screw it. But so anyway, I finally cleaned it up. And ordered some organizational bins and stuff to put on, because I'm also a stationery hoarder. I love office supplies and stationery. So anyway, I went through this, I finally got the motivation, and I cleaned off my desk. I cleaned out the drawers. I put together, some bins, and I've got in front of me, I've got a cabinet that you guys can't see. And, everything's organized in all these little bins, and all my markers and pencils and whatever is in there as well. And some friends came over, and they've been here before, and they've seen my desk and never commented it. It's just whatever. It's who cares, right? They're friends. They don't care. But they noticed how clean my desk was, and looked at me and just
The
went,
only reason I'm laughing is that I'm like, well, then it must have been pretty bad for them to notice that it wasn't, right? Like,
yeah, yeah. And said, "Are you okay? Is everything okay? Did you quit? Like, are you really
oh my
giving
gosh.
up?" And like, kind of like this, it almost looked like I had just said, "Fuck it," and like walked away, and,
Resigned from
um,
life.
and
Oh
I
my
was like,
gosh.
"No, I just cleaned it up. Is that bad?"
Oh
And
my
they're like,
gosh.
"No, we're just used to." I mean, like, there's even around me, there's piles of books because I don't have enough bookshelves, and I'm a voracious reader. And while I'm verbally processing all this, I'm realizing how I've failed myself in designing my space, by the way. But it's just kind of funny that I live like this, I produce like this, and even my husband said something to me, fair enough, because he's got to stare at it. But he's just like, "I don't understand how you work like that," because there's like
Mm,
barely enough space for me to move my mouse, like right next to my
yeah.
laptop. Um, but I'm kind of working on that side of me, like trying to get better about keeping things cleaned up and putting things away after I use them. And,
I do think there's a genetic thing. I mean, this is a conflict we have here all the time because a lot of stuff and mess gives me anxiety. Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
do. I get anxiety. And I'm saying this like that's one of the reasons why this room right now is bothering me so much because we put stuff in here. It's kind of like I have a box of stuff I have to go through. And when things aren't neat and organized, I start to get it makes me feel anxious. I also start to feel like a little claustrophobic
yeah,
almost.
yep.
Um, and then it also makes me feel like I need to do this. And
I
uh
mean, the claustrophobia, what you just described, is ultimately what ended up making me clean up around here, is
yeah,
because I
I
was
start to
starting
feel
to
like
feel like this,
yeah.
like
And
this
I
is
feel
how I
that way
was
when
working.
stuff is like messy, but
Yeah,
I live with people who have apps they do not it does not bother them. It to the point where this just recently happened. Um Somebody put one of the kids' water bottles on the stairs for one of the kids to bring upstairs. But it
what is this
sat
world
there
coming
for a
to?
week, and I literally was like I was, like, doing an experiment. I was like, "Let me see how long it will sit there before somebody will bring it upstairs." How many times the people go up and down, I'll say, "Do you know that nobody ever picked it up?" I will
Nothing.
almost put money on the fact that 2 of them probably did not see it, and the one that put it there thought the other ones were gonna see it, and I'm like, and then I literally went away on a retreat that I was running, came back, and stuff was still there. And I'm like, I'm doing a social experiment, and my social experiment is failing. Like, I was like, at what point will it be that this bothers them enough? There
It
is no
won't.
point. That is what I've learned. There is no point.
Nope.
And on one level, it's good because literally this stuff sitting in my office right now is driving me absolutely, batshit
Yeah,
crazy. It won't bother them. It could sit here for the next year and it will literally not bother them. So I should be maybe grateful about that, right?
yeah.
But it also means that like like we moved into our bedroom literally 2 years ago and there's a laundry basket of stuff that is not my stuff and it needs to be gone through and it has been there for 2 years.
At this point, you could toss it. You won't miss it.
Oh, no. Oh, no. I
No,
live
I
with people who
understand. Yeah, I
cannot
would be
throw
the
stuff
same way.
out.
No, I
Yes.
understand. Yeah.
No, I mean, like, it's because I would just be like, "Okay, obviously, whatever you need in here, you didn't need, just throw it out." But no, 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 no. When you live with somebody who's like, everything has value and you can't throw things out, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see the difference of like what bothers people. And I'm one
It
of those who
is.
I'm not naturally a very clean, like I'm not good at cleaning. I don't
Yeah.
enjoy cleaning. I'm not naturally good at that,
Yeah.
but I get anxious if it's not clean.
Yeah.
Is that like,
That makes perfect sense to me, quite frankly. I
oh,
mean, it
really?
does.
Okay,
It
that makes no
does.
sense
Yeah.
to me.
No, it just, I think that we like some, I mean, there's some people you just like the thing, but you don't like doing the thing. Like you like the outcome. You desire the outcome. And it's okay that you're not good at it if as long, I mean, as long as you find a way to get that outcome, that's satisfying to you. I don't think that's really weird at all. I mean, it's kind of like I want to stay trim and healthy, or I want to, I want my, actually, here's a better example. I want my hair to look good. I like the outcome of a haircut and a hairstyle, but I can't physically cut my hair myself or style it, in a way that, would look good.
Yeah.
It would look like Edward Scissorhands, but I like the outcome of a haircut. So, we can't be good at everything. We have natural strengths and talents that,
But cleaning
and
is not mine. My daughter,
yeah,
she loves
it's,
to clean. She's good at it. I'm like, "You go knock yourself out." I'm not. Although I will
yeah,
say, when I moved out of Colorado and I had no money. I mean, it was after my divorce, Emily's cancer. I had no money. I'm like broker than broke. As soon as I had like 2 pennies to like scrape together, the first thing I did was find somebody who would clean my apartment. Now I lived in a 3-bedroom apartment, and that was what I spent my money on. Now that meant I didn't get my nails done. I didn't go on vacation. I didn't
yeah,
buy new clothes. It was my priority was to pay someone to clean my house. And I remember getting
yeah.
judgment from my mother of like, you live in a 3-bedroom apartment. Why do you need to pay somebody to clean your apartment?
It's your
But the
job
way
to keep
I
the house clean.
well, the
Yeah,
way the way I justified it in my head was that I was like, look, I work all week. I'm a single mom. It takes me about 3 hours to clean my apartment on a Saturday. I can take those 3 hours and spend them with my daughter, or spend them working to make more money, right? Or I can spend cleaning. And so if I looked at like, you know, time in one area versus time in an area, I was like, it was worth it to me. And that
yeah.
was before I got an office assistant or anything else. I was like, I want someone to clean my house. And I will tell you my favorite day. She comes twice a month and I love her. I am literally like, I love you. I would marry you. You are my favorite person in the world. And in full transparency, the only reason Jack and I are still together are because of her. Like I am like, you saved my relationship because it
Yeah.
is my favorite day to come home is when she is here. I mean, there's very few people who give me as much joy in life as Sylvia does, and I am so grateful for her. I am grateful for her every single day.
Oh,
I'm
I
like,
love hearing that.
please
That's,
never
yeah.
leave me. Thank you so much. So if you have
We
someone
feel the
who
same
cleans,
way about our housekeeper. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
if you have someone who cleans your house, you'd be so nice to that person. Like,
Oh, yeah.
because she
Yeah.
works hard and I appreciate her so much. So yeah.
So when ours comes, that was something my husband and I that, we kind of like you, like here's what we're willing to sacrifice in order to have this. And here's the time that we'll get back, not having to deal with that. And lawn care, works the same way. The guys that come and, take care of our lawn once a week do it in 20 minutes versus the 3 or 4 hours it might take me, get out there and mow and trim and blow and all the
Mhm.
other things that need to be done. And so you just kind of have to look at the ROI on it. But our housekeeper, we just absolutely adore her. We love the way she makes our bed. And so she comes on Mondays, and so we look forward to Monday nights. In fact, if you have, this is actually my solution for Monday scaries, y'all, is have something that truly you just like, you value so highly. Like for some reason, we value this freshly made, terrific
Yeah.
bed that she makes. I don't know how she does this. I've even watched her to try and replicate, and there's just no, I mean, it's not like she's doing anything like that special. But when we get in that bed Monday night, it's like,
It's the love. It's the love. She
yeah,
made it with love. That's
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, totally.
okay.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good I want to transition to this because I'm fascinated and I want your takes on this. You because to me this is we've talked a little bit briefly about self-care. there's
Mhm.
this buzzword self-care, right? And women use
Yes.
self-care and I use self-care. And I just did a whole retreat this weekend, the total transformation weekend. And one of the things that we talked about was like women are like watering cans. What do you do to fill yourself back up? And what do you do for self-care? And how do you incorporate? Because we just tend to give, 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 and then we have nothing left and we're burnt out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, so like I'm thinking based on that conversation, like even having I would say like Sylvia is my self-care. Like that sounds funny, right? But like this is something that I give myself that I probably really don't need to. It's a luxury, right? But it
Yeah.
makes me so happy that I can
Yes.
cry. And
Yeah.
so I'm thinking like your bed on Monday, going into your bed is something that you love. But I know you have a very different take on self-care than most people do. I would say you have a
Yeah.
little controversial take on self-care that most people might be like, I'm not sure about that. So, in
Yeah.
your research, and I know you're an expert in burnout, so I will also say that your controversial take is also based on your research, right?
Yes.
And what you
Yes.
know. So, I need to dive a little bit more into this because one
Okay.
of the things I heard you say before we started recording is that like yoga is not self care. And I will say that every time, no matter what is wrong with me, if I'm like, I'm depressed, if I'm like, I am overwhelmed, or I am sad, or I have a pain in my left pinky toe, Jack's answer to everything that possibly could be wrong with me is you need to go to the gym. I mean, he
Mhm.
truly believes that the gym will fix everything. um, I don't personally really like to work out, but I
Yeah.
do like yoga.
Yeah.
So I have
That's
always thought
great.
of yoga as, okay, that's my self-care because it forces me to be somewhere where like my phone's not ringing. I have to be present for an hour, which is difficult sometimes, right? But then
Yeah.
you just told me before we started recording it is not self-care and I need more information on that.
Absolutely. Yes. I have a very controversial opinion about healthcare. And I want to clarify because I don't think we got to that part of the conversation. It's not that I don't think that yoga is self-care. It's not self-care for everybody. But I as the definition of self-care stands right now and the way most people have basically been trained to interpret it, it is crap. It doesn't work. It's not beneficial to most
Okay,
people
so
that are
like
truly
explain
stressed
this.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah, if
'cause we're
you're
seeing this
so
everywhere, and then we see, like, self-care isn't selfish care, like,
it's
so
not.
so I need to
It's
know, like,
not.
what's the okay, what is the definition that you would say self-care is, and then why would that definition be inaccurate?
I mean, literally, self-care is doing something for yourself that makes you feel good, makes you feel better, that enhances your life in a more positive way.
Okay.
And what we have unfortunately kind of reconstructed that definition to be is we've like opened it up to mean very in this I actually just said that very weird. We've actually turned it into this thing that means very specific things. It's like I shouldn't say we opened it, we narrowed it. The definition of what self-care can be is very narrow. We think it has to
Hmm,
be meditation, we think it has to be deep breathing, we think it has to be yoga, we think it has to be exercise, we think it has to be drinking water. And the definition of self-care needs to be so much broader than that. And when so unfortunately, people's vision of self-care is very limited. And so when the typical things that you can see in every Google, result for self-care, the meditation, breathing, yoga, whatever, take a bubble bath. That's one of my favorite ones. Take a bubble bath, get your nails done. It doesn't work for a lot of people. And unfortunately, when those things don't work, then you think, this is crap. This isn't, it doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. And we need to broaden our definition of self-care. And you and I just gave a great example of that. We were talking about housekeepers, which, yes, it's a luxury, but in some cases, it's also a necessity. Because if you're a person that's really struggling, you're overwhelmed with, all your responsibilities and all your obligations, going and doing yoga isn't really going to help that overwhelm. It's not really going to help that anxiety and that anxiousness in you. And that's one thing actually I would say to you. You have to be present and it's really hard for me. Why is it really hard for you? It's probably because your mind is racing, it's still thinking about a million things. And so part of self-care needs to, be, broadening our perspective on what actually helps people, what actually reduces stress. And sometimes it's delegating those responsibilities of cleaning your house, taking care of your lawn, hiring somebody to babysit your kids, once or twice a week. A freshly made bed. There's just other things you can be doing that actually would have more of an impact on you than some of the typical stuff that gets thrown at us, as solid advice, to take care of ourselves. And I have so many women that come to me, for coaching, and, they're just a ball of stress. And I can relate to that. That's how I used to be, as a ball of stress. And it just didn't make me feel any better to go get a drink with my girlfriends, or it didn't make me feel any better to, go buy a new outfit or go get my nails done. And I got bored in the bathtub. Just kind of be sitting there going, okay, what am I supposed to do? And we don't focus. I don't think we focus enough on our minds when it comes to self-care, because that's really our problem. Is that your stress response, part of your stress response is what's happening up in your brain. It's all those stress chemicals that your brain is actually marinating in, that's making it impossible for you to calm down and relax. And part of the problem is you just haven't found the thing really that interrupts that stress response. So the stress chemicals can drain away from your brain. And so, open up that concept. Maybe that's going to a movie. Maybe that literally is vegetating on your sofa and, Netflix and chill kind of thing. Maybe self-care for you is, taking an hour instead of a rush 20 minutes to go grocery shopping. You like to just float through the store. That was one thing that I just realized maybe even 5 or 6 years ago that is very comforting to me, very calming for me, is going to like Home Goods, or we used to have what's called Tuesday morning here, which were, those discount warehouse kind of like, it's all decorations for your home. Just walking around there for like an hour looking at stuff.
Really?
No
Well, that's
intent
what I
to
was
buy
gonna
it.
ask you. That was gonna be my question. I was gonna say, okay, in this kind of the search, what did you find was self-care for you?
Yeah. So self-care for me is that housekeeper that makes that fresh bed that I really look forward to every week. That is very comforting to me. It makes me think somebody cares about me and makes me feel like I'm being taken care of. And, it just is, it's a source of warmth for me, which is, it helps me, kind of calm down. It kind of helps me decompress and de-stress, because I know I'm going to get in that bed and it's going to feel good. And I'm not saying it erases all my problems, but it's something, when you have something positive to look forward to, you tend to be, a less stressed person in general. But the walking around, the home place, looking at Home Goods for some reason calms me down. Same for my mom.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, which is funny. I've also noticed that, really getting to spend time with my dogs is something that's calming for me. To me, it's not just another responsibility. And I think a lot of people, while they do love their pets tremendously, they don't see them as a source of calmness, partially because they're too busy to see it that way. But also because they're just, they've never thought of themselves being, that's why animals are used as support, they just have this calming effect naturally on our vibes. And it's not just dogs, cats, your ferret, whatever it is, whatever your favorite animal type is. I'm desperately trying to get that pygmy hippo in Thailand right now. um, and there's just something about being around animals and being able to like interact with them for me that is very satisfying and, calming. And I just don't get the same response when I sit in a bubble bath or when I go get a massage. Like my muscles feel better after a massage, but it's not what
I
chills
love
me
a
out.
massage. Oh my God, I
Yeah.
love it.
It just
So
doesn't
this is
chill me out.
interesting because I love
Yeah.
what you're saying. It's not that the self-care itself is a kind of a taboo thing that we should stop doing. It's really
Yeah.
that there's not a cookie cutter. Everybody's self-care is going to look different.
Yes.
And Like, it's interesting. You say a massage. I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Bob Hope got a massage
Yeah.
every single day of his life. That is like my dream life. That is my
Yeah.
dream life. I love a massage.
I have said when I
Um,
win the lottery, the first person I'm hiring is the hand and foot massage person.
oh, yes. I love a
All
foot
the time.
massage.
That's all I want.
Love that. But
Yeah.
the idea of going to Home Goods,
Mhm.
I have anxiety even thinking about that. Like,
Yeah.
shopping is my nemesis, and, to my daughter's poor, sadness because she loves to go to the mall. She'll, like, just love to be in the mall. I have to work like, when we would have to go clothes shopping for her, I'd have to work myself up, and I'd
And I
have to,
will
like, be
admit
like,
clothes
"Alright."
shopping does not have that same effect for me.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
just
yeah.
being in a store, being in a mall, being in a place like a TJ Maxx where there's just so much grocery
Mhm.
shopping, like where there's just so much stuff, it literally over it I like
Now I have to
get
have my groceries
overwhelmed.
delivered because I hate grocery shopping. It just
Mm,
like you, it's
yeah,
overwhelming, because that means I have to
but
sit there and figure out what I wanna eat, I mean, there's so
but
many
Home Goods
negative.
does it, huh? Home Goods does
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I've got a girlfriend that loves shoes, and she'll just go sit in Nordstrom's shoe department. I mean, because they're
Yeah,
notorious
yeah.
for their giant shoe department.
Yeah, yeah.
That's something that brings her a lot of comfort, it
Interesting.
yeah. So, we need to open our eyes to that a little bit more. We need to stop listening to influencers, that are
Yeah.
showing you these overdone bathtubs with the eucalyptus hanging and bath bombs that are pain in the butt to clean off the side of your tub. That's not the only option. And I think people are also shamed about things that make them feel better or feel good because, if it's something different, people kind of give you the side eye. And I guess I'm just so used to getting the side eye and people thinking I'm weird. It doesn't bother me. But yeah, there's just like going back to that aesthetic thing, and which to me is just another way to say unrealistic standards and
Mm,
expectations is really what that says to me. Like I get that you want things to look a certain way and feel a certain way, but when it starts causing you stress and anxiety to reach that goal, that aesthetic, that becomes a problem. That's where that's not really working. But it really does bother me that we're being trained that things have again like on a deeper level thanks to social media that things have to look a certain way and be a certain way and operate a certain way, or else you're not doing it right. But self-care really is what you feel better doing, what actually calms you down, what interrupts your stress response enough that either your stress hormones start to dissipate. And that doesn't look the same for
huh.
everybody. And I really just want to scream that. Maybe that's the hill I'm going to die on.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the hell. That turn signals and self-care.
yeah.
That is your
Yeah. Turn
you need
signals and self
a
care.
T-shirt
Yeah.
that says "Turn signals and self-care." Um,
But yeah, it bothers me so much when I keep seeing that same thing repeated and,
huh.
that it has to look this way. It has to, and self care, there are some of us too that our set level is kind of an anxious response. And I think we also think that our self care has to take us back to like ground zero, where we have to be totally calm. We put this unrealistic goal attached to it as well is also a problem. That it has to do a certain thing and feel a certain way, and sometimes that's not really what you need or it needs to happen to be effective. Also this concept that it's just going to take one thing that's going to make you feel
Mm,
better, when for most of us it kind of takes a combination of solutions, to actually get the full effect. So, if maybe self care for you is organizing your junk drawer, self care for you is cleaning off the kitchen island or the stairs, that are full of things that people haven't taken up, to put away. That's something that's causing your mind to relax actually, because it's getting
huh.
taken care of and it's decreasing your anxiety, and your stress response because you're solving the problem. And here we think, and I admit I've done this with my husband. For a long time, the sheets would come out of the dryer and they'd just sit there. And felt like I was the only one folding sheets. And he, you know, I'm not saying, I love my husband. My husband's wonderful and he's truly helpful around the house. He probably does more than I do. But, it was just like, how do you not see that? Why doesn't that bother you? And he's like, I don't know. I
Like
just
the
don't.
water bottle on the hallway.
Yeah, like the water bottle. Yeah. And so, you've got to kind of look at the things that are, when I tell people to start working on their self-care, I ask them, let's make a list of the things that piss you off. Let's make a list of the things that make you anxious. Let's make a list of the things that truly bother you. And what's an activity that you can, attach to that thing that will actually make that go away. And so if you are anxious about having a cluttered house or an unclean house, the most obvious solution to that is either figuring out a way to clean that regularly yourself or hiring somebody to help you maintain it. Right. And I think that's, we just don't look at it that way. We look at it as just another responsibility that has to get done. Or our houses have to look a certain way, and we don't equate, we're not thinking about all the stress and pressure we're attaching to that scenario, and how it's deeply affecting our stress or anxiety levels. I have sorry, I keep talking, but
no, I want to stop just for a second because this is really interesting to me, and I don't want you to lose where your train of thought. I've never equated thinking of self-care as that self-care is something that I am doing to lower the stress hormones in my body. Just that alone, just that reframe of what we view self-care, because
Yeah.
I think of it as something, and this is, I think, where women struggle with self-care, right? Is like, well, I'm doing something that's just for me. It's selfish. It's something that I really like to do. It's taking the bubble bath. Like, I do enjoy a bath. So I'm like, oh, I could totally, like, I like to sneak upstairs. The water's warm, all of that. Versus I am doing something physically for my health that lowers my stress hormones. That is and even the organizing, maybe that is why I go fanatic and like to clean out drawers and clean out things. I've never thought of that as a self-care, but it gives me anxiety that it's not done that way. And when I do it, I feel so much better.
Right.
And so, and for me, because I like to be productive. So I feel like I'm doing something that needed to get done and then it was productive. And so it makes me happy on all these levels, but I would never put organizing my hall closet as self-care. Those two never would go together. So if you are listening and where you can put an answer, I would love to know from our listeners, number one, what do you do for self-care? And what would you do differently if you put the idea of lowering my stress hormones makes me feel really good? And that's a self-care. And maybe I've never thought of it as self-care. I'm curious what other people will say, because I have now just realized that organizing my closet is self-care. Okay.
It is.
And I love that. I love that.
No, it is. Yeah. Because, and to take that one step further too, that's another misconception about self-care, is that it has to be this totally chill, relaxed. You're sitting somewhere, not doing anything. It can't
and
be
there's
something,
a gong in the background.
Yeah. It can't be something, it can't be a productive activity. Having a hobby and doing that hobby is self-care. And typically hobbies mean you're doing something, right? Like you're crafting something, you're building something, you're watching something, you're writing something, you're reading. These are all things that fulfill you and actually, do your body good, your brain good. You feel better when you're in that flow of that particular activity. And
you're right. We think of self-care shouldn't be productive. I think that's the whole, I don't know where that message came from, but the idea that if it's productive, it's not really self-care because you're doing something, and it should be something that's totally meaningless, relaxing, and not productive. And then I love this.
Well, and to take it one step further, which may make some people's head blow up, one of my true solutions for burnout and, overwhelm and stress is having more fun, taking more time to have more fun, playing and laughing. We think those things are so unproductive, but they are actually they're necessary for your soul. They provide so much, there's so many benefits from having fun, from playing and laughing. It, not only lowers your stress level, but it clears your mind. It strengthens relationships around you. It actually makes you more creative. It helps you problem solve. There's just a variety of things, that come from that. I mean, that's why they tell you to take a break and go walk for 10 minutes. And then by the time you get back to your desk, you're like, I know what to do. Now I know how to solve that problem. It's because you let your mind you freed your mind from, being trapped, to focus on one particular thing. But there's so much benefit that comes from having more fun. It's actually, this is, when I learned this, it's actually blew my mind. But just that the chemicals, the happy hormones, the happy chemicals that we all want come from those things, from having more fun, from laughing. And it's such a natural, it's a free thing to do. It doesn't even have to cost you money. But we've gotten so hell-bent on everything needing to be productive that we think that fun and, is a waste of time. I mean, think about all these instances where you've been working as a team and somebody starts goofing off and everybody gets pissed because, that person's goofing off. They're, it's probably getting in the way of productivity, but at the same time, that's kind of their way of saying, my brain needs a break. We need to go do something else. But the fun, play, and laughter actually is natural happiness. And I think a lot of the reasons so many of us are unhappy and we are, they come to people like me and say, I want to be happy again. I want to find happiness and fulfillment, is because really one of the only ways that you can be happy is doing something that produces those chemicals in your brain, those happiness chemicals.
So just so you all know, Jen just gave you a great endorsement to all go listen to my TED Talk. There you go. My TEDx talk is all about this. It's about using fun and laughter in the medical field. So thank you for my free endorsement of this.
You're welcome. Anytime. You were totally 100% right.
That.
Agree with you.
I was like, yeah,
agree with
see,
you.
a great endorsement there. Well, it's interesting. I use the example of a bunch because we talk about how, obviously going through like a pediatric diagnosis is very stressful for everybody, right? And it's so taboo to laugh. Like that is horrifying that you would laugh in a cancer ward, right?
Yeah.
But that laughter releases stress hormones. And I use the example a lot of like kids, like think about a bunch of teenagers and they're like in the auditorium and they're getting yelled at by the principal, or they're at graduation, right?
Yeah.
And they're doing the graduation rehearsal and like they start giggling and they can't stop giggling. And now they're
Yeah.
getting yelled at more because they're giggling, and nobody's looking at it as like, well, they're laughing because they're under stress. And it's a way that they're releasing their
Seeing your
stress.
tension. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or like people who
Yeah.
like laugh at a funeral, like inappropriate times where you're like, why are you giggling? We're here at a funeral. This is somber. This is supposed to be
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah.
But we don't think of it as like the body is like, I need to get these stress hormones out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
love
you
that.
got to release that tension somehow. Your body is telling you, I can't hold it in anymore. I can't keep, I've reached my max. All your stress hormones, your stress cycles are running at full capacity. There's nothing else you can do but explode. So it's telling you you're reaching, reaching maximum capacity in that respect. And we just don't listen, we don't listen to ourselves when our body or brain is trying to tell us that. But that's kind of been ingrained in us societally, that we need to be productive people, that we need to act and behave a certain way. And I know I keep referring to these unrealistic expectations and standards, but it's true. I mean, there's just this it's not even that it's even unspoken. We speak about it all the time. We just don't label it that. But yeah, it's mind blowing to me, people start freaking out. They look at me and I don't have time for that. Where am I supposed to put that in my schedule? And I was like, it actually doesn't even take a lot of time. One of the things that I do, something that's a total like dopamine, thriller to me, is watching funny dog videos, even just funny animal videos. I love them and they make me so happy. They make me laugh. I could be, even when I'm in the worst mood, I'm having the worst day, I can go watch those videos. And it just erases a lot of that angst that I'm feeling. I'm not saying that I'm totally, life is better and happy and birds are chirping again, but I'm not as like tightly wound. I'm not as stressed and anxious and frustrated. It's kind of released a lot of that, a lot of those chemicals. And so, if you can find something that's very quick like that, because how much time do we already spend on our phones anyway? Why not make that time useful?
Watch a dog video, watch a fun dog video.
Yeah, go for it. By the way, Reddit, excellent place to find them. There's some subreddits that's all it is, are dog videos, cat videos, animal videos. That's my go-to spot, where I spend 5 minutes just watching funny videos. It cracks me up and warms my heart. And That's
And it's
yeah,
interesting. I think we do live in a society where as we become adults, we don't think of fun. Fun is for children. I mean, that is
yes.
just a very cultural thing. Children have fun and adults don't.
Yeah.
Um, Children laugh, they're silly, they giggle. We don't do that as adults, right?
Yeah.
And even the idea of we maybe this is we live in America. I'm sure there's other countries that may be different or maybe even more so than us, that everything has to be productive. Everything we do should have a purpose, it should have a meaning, it should have to be
Make money.
productive. And yeah, and I will tell you, this is one of the reasons openly I started this podcast, is that it would have made more sense to do a podcast for women in business. That is my expertise. That is my connection. That is my community. And to be able to be talking about how to grow your business. And I just thought, I don't want to do anything else in my life that is business related. I don't want to have to constantly think, is this adding value? Is this training? Is this education? I want to sit around with women that I like, have fun, and have the conversations that I want to have at happy hour, having a glass of wine. And I
Yeah.
wanted something that was totally not there. There's no value to our podcast. There's no value. It's just irrelevant. And so that really truly was the purpose of starting it. It was just, let's just
It's
talk
great.
about stuff and nobody needs to learn anything. You did not learn
Right.
anything from your
Don't
time with us, although
don't learn anything here. This is not for
yeah.
education.
Although I do feel like I actually learned quite a bit. I learned, number one, I don't need to feel guilty about wanting that organizing is actually self-care. And that when I think of self-care, I need to think what is going to lower my stress level, not what is self-care. This is what I've been told self-care is, but what will lower my stress level. And that alone, that mind shift, Jen, was, I appreciate that. That was so valuable to me. So
Good.
I know
Good.
we have to finish up and I know you have a gift for our listeners. And so, guys, this will all be in the show notes where you'll be able to grab this, connect with Jen. I would encourage you to go follow her on her Instagram. I know you're constantly talking about ways that, particularly for women, if you are a woman, you need to follow her. You're talking a lot about what the struggles that women are facing, the stress that women are facing, and how to cope with those things,
Yes.
burnout, overwhelm. But can you share with us about your gift?
Yeah. So the gift that I am giving to all of you, because the holidays are just around the corner, um, as evidenced by the Christmas tree in the grocery store,
Oh, gosh.
uh, it's surrounded by pumpkins. I've got
Oh,
to tell
my
you,
gosh.
it's so weird. It is so weird. Like I look at it and I'm just like, I'm having trouble processing this. But I actually have the ultimate family gathering survival guide. It's a PDF book that isn't just reading. There's actually exercises in there because it's very stressful at the holiday time for a lot of us to be around our families. And there's just, there are a lot of preconceived ideas of what family, gatherings are supposed to be like and how we're supposed to behave. And unfortunately,
Mm.
you've got some very nosy, some of us have some very nosy relatives or, relatives that say just wildly offensive or inappropriate things. And it's difficult to find the courage to respond to that and, enforce your boundaries. And so I wrote this workbook specifically, when you're around your family. I grew up in a big family and I was kind of the black sheep. And I found it, really stressful to be around them sometimes because the things that I would talk about, the things that I was interested in say wasn't the interest of the rest of the group. Which has led to me being an adult that doesn't mind saying weird, controversial things, I guess. But, I don't mind speaking my mind, and I know that a lot of people have trouble enforcing those boundaries and saying what you just said to me actually makes me uncomfortable. You're thinking one thing, but you're dying on the inside, but putting this smile on your face, which communicates to the other person that whatever they're doing is okay. You're fine with it. You're comfortable with it. But on the inside, you're just, quaking and ready to,
Yeah, that people pleasing that we were talking
yeah,
about. Yeah.
it's totally that. And so I think, this book is full of ideas of how to handle these situations. Part of that comes from you dealing with it on your side. There's some mindset changes that you need to make on your side in order for that to be possible, right? So you need to start looking at things a different way and believing that
I
you
need
deserve.
this book. I need this book. I need this book.
Free.
I'm going to get the book myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's I wrote it, I have siblings that, I grew up being picked on, and they still think, I'm 48 and they still call me the same nicknames, when I was a kid. And sometimes it's funny, but most of the time it's not, and it's just like, can you just stop saying that? There's just things that, expectations maybe families have where all the women are supposed to be in the kitchen cooking and all the guys are watching football. And when the woman, wanders in to watch the football with the rest of the guys, everybody's like, should you be in here? I don't know if that's okay. Like, why aren't you helping and getting things ready? There's just a lot of dynamics, that are complicated when it comes to family. And I think a lot of that complication is we love our family. We do want that connection. We want that, we want to be part of that group. But there's things that our family does, and we do that make that difficult.
Yeah, I feel like we could have a whole other conversation about that, like
Yeah,
expectations for
yeah,
holidays
yeah.
and stuff.
And that for me, that's one of the things that
Yeah.
I deeply had to change about myself, is that I had this expectation that I had to be treated a certain way, which is okay. But I can't, because I can't control what other people feel, think, and do. I can only control those things within myself. I had to work on inside of, okay, how do I respond to that? Or how do I remove myself from, extricate myself from that situation so that I don't even have to be part of it. There's just certain things that I can do to, that doesn't involve any participation on the part of the offender, that that'll alleviate the pain, essentially. So, there's a variety of things, we could talk, like you said, we could talk about this all day, but yeah, it's a fun, and I think it's a fun read. I do use a lot of humor in there. That's me. I'm a smart ass. I'm very sarcastic. I dedicated the book to my siblings. And in parentheses, it says, I'm still mom's favorite. So yeah. This book, I've got it for sale on Amazon and Etsy, but for your audience, I wanted to give it for free. I wanted to make sure that everybody listening took something really helpful away from today. So when you sign up for it, it's just a PDF that's going to be delivered to your inbox. And what I also love about that is you can actually take it with you to the family gathering. So you can look down at your phone.
We're pretty your notes.
This is what I wanted to say.
I'm going to respond, but just one moment. I love that. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, families have interesting dynamics and a lot of pressure for holidays to look a certain way and to be a certain way. And I don't know, as I'm getting older, I'm questioning all of that. I would say we could do a whole other episode. Maybe that might be a fun one, right? Just let's talk about
I'll come back in a few weeks. Let's chat.
Yeah, that would be very interesting because I'm unraveling like what I want a holiday to look like and feel like versus what it is expected to be. And realizing that sometimes what you think, oh, I have a day off, it's going to be really fun, it's going to be relaxing, has actually been very stressful. And kind of going, I don't think I want to participate in that. This is what I would rather do instead. This Easter, we actually didn't celebrate Easter. We went to go visit my brother in New Hampshire. And I have to say it was a fabulous Easter. Like, we didn't have Easter, but we did. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it was great. And it's now made me kind of reevaluate all of our holidays. So that I feel like we could do a whole other talk on.
That's a great experience. Good.
Yeah. But I appreciate you being here today. I appreciate all your insight and what you're sharing. And I'd love to hear from our listeners, like what was your takeaway? What did you like best? I know we're not about adding value, but was there something that you got? Hopefully you just kind of felt like you hung out with us while we were chatting. And so if you like this type of vibe, if this was a good episode and you're like, I really like the style of just, pulling the curtain down, being transparent, then of course we would love for you to subscribe, come back. Lots of like very interesting people, totally not relevant conversations. If you'd love to leave a review, we can always review a review. And then of course, come join us next time. And the whole reason we have these conversations is really because life truly, truly is worth laughing at. So thank you for being here. And Jen, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.